The first envelope looked too small to matter. Yet when Otto Keller opened it and saw the amount written beside his name, he called the American clerk back and insisted there had been a mistake because the German prisoners had been told they were earning only camp credit, while the paper in his hand showed real wages, deductions, and a balance large enough to make every man in the barrack wonder what exactly America believed their work was worth. In August 1944, 36 German prisoners returned to Camp Hawthorne after 2 weeks of harvesting tomatoes and repairing irrigation lines on Missouri farms. They expected the usual evening count and meal, but Sergeant Daniel Brooks directed them toward the recreation hall, where an Army payroll clerk sat behind a table covered with small brown envelopes. Otto Keller entered first because he spoke the best English, and the clerk asked him to sign beside his prisoner number. Inside the envelope was a printed earnings statement showing 18 credited workdays, canteen deductions, and a remaining balance recorded in dollars and cents. Otto studied the total twice, then pushed the paper back across the table and said the decimal point had to be wrong. He had expected a handful of camp coupons for soap and cigarettes, yet the statement showed a gross credit of more than $14 accumulated from his workdays. Brooks explained that prisoners on approved labor details could receive daily work credit, while the camp recorded what they earned, what they spent, and what remained in their accounts. Otto translated the explanation, and the line behind him immediately filled with questions about whether the figures represented American money or some special prisoner currency. The confusion turned sharper when Heinrich Baum opened his envelope and found only 2 credited workdays, although he had worked beside Otto for the entire period. Another prisoner, Joseph Brandt, received credit for 21 days even though an injured ankle had kept him inside camp for nearly a week. Otto placed the 3 statements side by side and noticed that the prisoner numbers were correct, but the work totals had been switched. Brooks called the payroll clerk back, yet the man insisted that the figures came directly from farm time sheets and could not be changed without authorization. A farmer named Samuel Carter arrived at the gate minutes later to return a toolbox left in his truck. Otto asked Brooks to question him, and Carter confirmed that Baum had worked every day while Brandt had been absent during the final week, directly contradicting the payroll records. The clerk collected the disputed envelopes and said headquarters would correct them later, but Otto noticed him place Keller's apparently generous statement into a separate folder instead of with the obvious mistakes. When Otto asked why, the clerk said his own balance required a special review because it was larger than expected. That answer spread through the barracks faster than the original pay envelopes. Some prisoners believed America had accidentally paid them several times too much, while others argued that the camp had been keeping money from them and was now trying to hide the totals before anyone understood the system. Before lights out, Otto opened his empty envelope again and found a narrow carbon strip stuck inside the fold. It carried his prisoner number beside a second balance smaller than the one printed on his statement, proving that 2 different payroll totals existed for the same man. The next morning, Brooks ordered the prisoners onto their farm trucks as usual, but Otto remained beside the barrack door holding the carbon strip. He was not refusing to work, yet he wanted an explanation before another day could be added to a record that already seemed capable of giving one man wages he never earned and taking them from another who had. Subscribe for more forgotten German POW stories like this one. Captain Robert Hale suspended the disputed accounts and brought Otto, Baum, and Brandt into the camp office. The payroll clerk, Martin Lewis, placed the official ledger on the desk and showed columns for workdays, canteen purchases, and retained credit, while Otto compared each line with the carbon strip from his envelope. Baum's missing days appeared in the ledger under another prisoner number only 1 digit different from his own. Brandt's extra days came from that same number, making the first error look like careless copying rather than deliberate theft. Otto then located his own line and found the larger balance printed on his statement exactly as expected. A second handwritten entry below it removed several dollars under the words canteen adjustment, although Otto had bought nothing during the farm detail. Hale ordered the canteen books brought over, and the manager found purchases supposedly made by Otto on days when he had been working 10 miles from camp. The entries included cigarettes, shaving soap, chocolate, and writing paper, all signed with a mark Otto had never used. Brooks checked the same dates against 6 other prisoner accounts and found similar purchases. Every false entry was small enough to appear ordinary, but together they had removed a substantial amount of credit from men assigned to outside work. Lewis blamed a former canteen assistant who had been transferred the previous month. Hale asked why the questionable deductions continued after that man left, and Lewis answered that older transactions were sometimes entered weeks late when receipts arrived from satellite camps. The explanation nearly ended the inquiry until Baum tried to use his corrected work coupon at the canteen. The manager held it under the light and discovered its serial number had already been redeemed, meaning someone had turned in a matching coupon before Baum ever received the original. Military police collected the redeemed coupons and compared the handwriting. Several bore signatures resembling prisoner names, while the endorsement on the back belonged to a civilian delivery company that supplied tobacco, soap, and sweets to the camp. Hale searched the delivery records and found that the company had received unusually large coupon bundles from Lewis's office. Lewis claimed he merely exchanged used camp credits according to procedure, but one bundle contained numbers assigned to prisoners who had never received pay envelopes at all. Otto asked to see his original statement again and found it missing from the folder Lewis had taken the previous evening. The carbon copy remained, however, giving Hale proof that Otto's account had once carried a higher balance before a questionable deduction was added. The prisoners returned to their barracks knowing the large figure had not been a decimal mistake, yet they still did not know how much of it they were actually entitled to keep. More importantly, the first American paycheck they had laughed at had revealed that someone was using their names to create purchases they never made. Hale canceled all coupon exchanges with the civilian company and sealed the payroll office. That afternoon, the farm trucks left without the German detail because no new work credit would be issued until every outstanding account could be reconstructed from original timesheets. The work suspension created an immediate problem for nearby farmers who had planned their harvest around prisoner labor approved through the camp. Trucks arrived at Hawthorne before sunrise, but guards turned them away while ripe tomatoes and corn remained in fields that could not wait for an accounting investigation. Inside the compound, some prisoners welcomed the break until Hale announced that no new work credit would accumulate while details remained suspended. Men who had planned to buy toiletries or send permitted purchases through camp channels blamed Otto for asking questions about a statement everyone else might have ignored. Baum defended him by producing the farm timesheet that proved 18 missing workdays. Krantz, an older sergeant in Barrack 5, grabbed the sheet and accused the Americans of inventing complicated numbers to make prisoners believe they were being paid when nothing outside the camp could be purchased with the credits. Hale responded by inviting 2 farmer representatives and the camp canteen manager into the recreation hall. He placed actual farm timesheets beside prisoner statements and explained each column while Otto translated, showing exactly how a day worked became an account entry and how an authorized purchase reduced the balance. The demonstration stopped the argument but exposed another discrepancy. Farmer Carter's sheet showed 42 German prisoners working on one emergency harvest day, while camp payroll listed only 34, leaving 8 complete work credits missing from the records. Brooks traced the 8 names to a truck that had been redirected to another farm after a bridge washed out. Their driver had submitted a separate timesheet, but Lewis's office marked it not received, even though Carter remembered personally handing over both pages. Military police searched the payroll waste files and found the second sheet torn into 4 pieces beneath a stack of old forms. The prisoners' names were still readable, along with Carter's signature and the date the document entered the camp office. Hale ordered Lewis removed from payroll duty, but the missing credits could not yet be restored because investigators needed to prove who had redeemed them. The civilian delivery company produced its own books, showing coupon numbers exchanged for merchandise at 3 stores in town. Brooks visited the first store and found that a man in an army clerk's uniform had purchased cartons of cigarettes using bundles of camp coupons. The owner remembered him because he always asked for goods that could be resold easily and never bought food or household supplies. At the second store, the owner identified Lewis from a photograph but also recognized another man, civilian warehouse driver Earl Dawson. Dawson had transported canteen goods to Hawthorne and could carry redeemed coupons back out without attracting attention. Police searched Dawson's warehouse and recovered cigarettes, coffee, chocolate, and shaving supplies packed behind legitimate camp deliveries. A metal box contained coupon bundles sorted by prisoner number, including the missing 8 work credits from Carter's redirected crew. The discovery produced the major consequence none of the prisoners expected, because their work accounts were now evidence in a criminal investigation and could not simply be paid out immediately. Men who at first believed they were receiving too much learned that some had actually received less than the records showed, while every disputed dollar had to remain frozen until the theft could be traced completely. The major reversal began when an Army finance officer arrived from district headquarters and examined Otto's original account calculations. He confirmed that the gross amount printed on the first statement had been correct, including every approved workday, and that the smaller carbon balance reflected an unauthorized deduction entered afterward. The officer then explained the point that had caused the prisoners' original disbelief. Their statement used ordinary dollar and cent accounting because the Army recorded the value of their work credit that way, even though the prisoners normally spent authorized earnings through camp-issued instruments rather than walking into town with American cash. Otto asked why the number looked so large compared with the coupons he remembered receiving. The finance officer opened an older account book and showed that unspent credits had accumulated instead of disappearing at the end of each workday, which meant Otto had been reading a balance built across weeks rather than a single day's payment. Hale ordered every prisoner account reconstructed from farm records instead of Lewis's ledger. Farmers returned signed time sheets, truck drivers confirmed attendance lists, and the canteen manager produced legitimate purchase receipts carrying prisoner signatures. When the corrected books were finished, Baum recovered all 16 missing work credits, while Brandt's accidental extra days disappeared because they had never belonged to him. Otto's false canteen purchases were removed, leaving a balance almost identical to the amount that had made him insist there was a mistake. Investigators then confronted Lewis with the restored accounts and coupon bundles from Dawson's warehouse. Lewis admitted creating false canteen deductions against men working outside camp because they were least likely to notice purchases supposedly made while absent. Dawson exchanged the diverted coupons for goods, then sold the merchandise through civilian contacts. The scheme worked because each theft looked like an ordinary candy bar, cigarette purchase, or small bookkeeping correction rather than a missing paycheck. The finance officer asked Otto to identify his signature on the valid canteen receipts. Otto separated 4 genuine purchases from 9 false ones in minutes, giving investigators a simple method they could repeat with every prisoner whose account had been altered. By evening, dozens of fraudulent transactions had been isolated, while innocent clerical mistakes were corrected separately. The distinction mattered to Hale because a switched prisoner number was not the same as deliberate theft, and he refused to let every error become evidence against the payroll staff. The reversal became visible the following morning when Hale reopened the recreation hall and distributed replacement statements. Otto received a new envelope carrying almost the same surprising balance as the first one, but this time every workday and every deduction could be traced to a signed record. Instead of claiming another mistake, he placed the statement beside Baum's corrected account and translated the figures for the men around him. The amount had never been unbelievable because America accidentally paid him too much. It had seemed unbelievable because he had not understood that small daily credits could accumulate into a total larger than anything he expected to see attached to prisoner labor. Hale reopened the farm details under a new system requiring duplicate timesheets, prisoner number checks, and separate signatures from the farmer and American escort. No payroll clerk could again erase an entire workday by making one sheet disappear inside an office drawer. The first trucks returned from the farms with sealed attendance sheets placed directly into a locked box beside the camp gate. Brooks opened the box with Hale each evening, while a prisoner representative watched the names being counted before the totals reached payroll. Otto volunteered for the first detail after the suspension and worked beside Baum on Carter's farm. At the end of the day, Carter read each prisoner number aloud while Brooks checked the list, turning a procedure that had once happened invisibly into something every man could verify. A week later, new earnings statements were distributed without confusion. Several prisoners immediately compared their workdays with handwritten notes they had kept themselves, and the figures matched closely enough that no one called the clerk back to argue about impossible totals. Krantz still doubted whether accumulated camp credit meant anything beyond the wire, so Hale showed him the official account record that would remain attached to each prisoner through later processing. The explanation did not make captivity easier, but it removed the suspicion that the number disappeared whenever the paper envelope was taken away. Military authorities prosecuted Lewis and Dawson using the coupon bundles, forged deductions, warehouse goods, and reconstructed accounts. The civilian stores that had unknowingly accepted valid-looking coupons were cleared after their owners provided transaction books and identified the men who brought them. The Army also audited nearby camps using the same delivery company. 2 harmless bookkeeping errors were found and corrected, but no matching theft scheme appeared, preventing Hawthorne's case from becoming an excuse to freeze every prisoner account in the district. Near the end of the harvest season, Carter brought the camp commander a photograph of the German detail standing beside crates of tomatoes after their final workday. Hale allowed the image to be posted in the recreation room next to a sample corrected earnings statement, without names or balances visible. Otto looked at the photograph and remembered the first envelope that had caused the entire barack to gather around him. The paper had seemed almost absurd because the number felt too large for a prisoner who returned every evening behind wire. Yet the value had grown through many ordinary days nobody noticed individually. Before winter transfers began, Hale issued final account statements to every man leaving Hawthorne. Otto checked his prisoner number, total credited workdays, valid canteen purchases, and remaining balance before signing the receipt himself. Baum did the same, then compared his total with the small notebook where he had recorded each farm detail after the scandal. The numbers matched, and he closed the notebook without asking an American clerk to explain anything. Brooks collected the signed copies and gave each prisoner his personal statement for the transfer file. Otto folded his inside his jacket rather than displaying it around the barack, because the figure no longer looked like an American mistake or a promise of easy money. The irreversible change was in the system itself, because duplicate worksheets, verified prisoner numbers, and signed purchases now followed every account. The first strange paycheck had done more than surprise the Germans. It had forced the camp to prove where each credit came from and where every deduction went. Months later, Otto opened his transfer packet and found the corrected Hawthorne statement still attached beneath his prisoner card, carrying the same balance that had once made him call the clerk back. He ran one finger down the workdays, then folded the page without questioning the decimal point. Baum smiled when he saw what Otto was holding, because both men finally understood that the surprise had never been one enormous payday, but the simple fact that dozens of small days of work had been recorded, added together, and forced to remain attached to their names. Most people know how World War II ended. Very few know what happened inside these prison camps. Subscribe for more Untold WWII stories.